What would you do if you found a letter that shattered everything you thought you knew about your family? I was 16 when I stumbled across the truth, hidden in a dusty attic box, buried under years of forgotten memories. My name is Ellie, and this is the story of how I uncovered my family's deepest secret that revealed my sister wasn't who I thought she was, and my father's love was never what it seemed. Growing up in our small, weathered house in upstate New York, life felt ordinary. Dad was a quiet man, a mechanic who spent long hours at the garage, always coming home with grease-stained hands and a tired smile. Mom had passed when I was 6, leaving behind a void filled only by her faded photographs and the stories Dad rarely shared. My younger sister, Lila, was the light of our home. At 13, she was all laughter and energy, with bright green eyes and a knack for making everyone adore her. I loved her fiercely, even when her charm outshone my own quieter presence. But there was always something a shadow in Dad's eyes when he looked at her, hesitation in his voice when he spoke of our family's past. It started on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Dad was at work, and Lila was at a friend's house. Bored, I wandered into the attic, a place I hadn't explored since I was a kid playing hide-and-seek. The air was thick with dust, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. I found an old wooden box tucked behind a broken lamp, its lid engraved with my mother's initials. Inside were letters, yellowed and fragile, tied with a faded ribbon. My heart raced as I untied them, expecting sentimental notes from Mom's past. But the first letter I opened wasn't from her, it was to her. The handwriting was unfamiliar, sharp and hurried. "Clara," it began, addressing my mother, "I can't keep pretending. Lila is mine, and you know it. I'll take care of her, always, but you have to tell him." My hands trembled as I read on. The letter was signed by a woman named Margaret, someone I'd never heard of. It spoke of a brief affair, a mistake, and a child, Lila. My sister wasn't my father's daughter. She was the product of my mother's betrayal, a truth Dad had chosen to bury. I sat there, surrounded by the attic's clutter, my world unraveling. Why had Dad raised Lila as his own? Why had he never told me? The questions burned, but the answers were locked in his silence. I dug deeper into the box, finding bank statements and receipts, money sent monthly to an account in Margaret's name, payments that continued long after Mom's death. Dad had been supporting Lila's biological mother in secret, even as our family struggled to make ends meet. I thought of the times I'd gone without new clothes or school supplies, while Lila always seemed to have what she needed. A bitter ache settled in my chest. That evening, I confronted Dad. He was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, his hands still smudged from the garage. "Why didn't you tell me about Lila?" I asked, my voice shaking. His face paled, and for a moment, I thought he'd deny it. But he didn't. He set down his mug and looked at me, his eyes heavy with guilt. "Ellie, I loved your mother. When I found out about Lila, it broke me. But she was just a baby, innocent. I couldn't abandon her. And I didn't want you to carry that weight." His words felt like a punch. He'd chosen to protect Lila, to shield her from the truth, while leaving me to stumble into it alone. "What about me?" I whispered. "Didn't I deserve to know?" He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I was trying to keep us together," he said. "I thought it was enough to love you both the same. But it wasn't." I felt betrayed, not just by Mom's secret but by Dad's silence. I was his daughter by blood, yet I'd been left to piece together the fragments of our family's lies. The next few weeks were a blur of anger and confusion. Lila, oblivious to the truth, continued her carefree ways, while I wrestled with resentment I couldn't voice. I wanted to hate her, but every time she smiled or hugged me, I remembered the sister I'd always known. The truth didn't change her, it changed me. I started pulling away, spending hours in the attic, reading every letter, trying to understand. That's when I found the twist that turned my pain into something else entirely. Among the letters was a journal, not Mom's but Dad's. Its pages were filled with his thoughts, written in the years after Mom's death. Lila is my daughter, he wrote, not by blood, but by choice. I see Clara in her, and I see Ellie's strength. I pay Margaret to keep her away, not for Lila's sake, but for Ellie's. I can't let her lose another piece of her family. My breath caught. Dad wasn't just protecting Lila, he was protecting me, shielding me from a woman who might have tried to claim Lila and disrupt our fragile lives. The payments weren't favoritism, they were sacrifice. Then came the unexpected. One entry mentioned a name I hadn't seen before, Aunt June, Dad's sister, who'd left town years ago. June found out about Lila, he wrote. She wanted to tell Ellie, but I begged her not to. She left because she couldn't keep the secret. I remembered Aunt June vaguely, her loud laugh, her warm hugs. She'd vanished when I was 10, and I'd assumed she'd just drifted away. Now I knew why. The realization hit me hard, Dad's choices had cost him his sister, too. He'd been carrying this burden alone, just as I'd felt alone in my discovery. I tracked down Aunt June, now living 2 towns over. When I showed up at her doorstep, her eyes widened, and she pulled me into a hug. I wanted to tell you, Ellie, she said, tears in her eyes. But your daughter loves you so much. He thought the truth would break you. We talked for hours, and she told me stories of Dad's quiet strength, how he'd worked extra shifts to keep us afloat, how he'd cried when he thought I wasn't looking. June's perspective shifted something in me. I'd seen Dad's silence as betrayal, but she saw it as lovey, a flawed, human attempt to hold our family together. When I returned home, I looked at Dad differently. He was still the man who'd chosen to raise a child who wasn't his, who'd paid a price to keep our family intact. But he was also the man who'd left me to face the truth alone, thinking it was for my own good. I couldn't forgive him completely, not yet, but I understood him. I sat Lila down and told her the truth, gently, watching her face crumple as she processed it. "Does this mean I'm not your sister?" she asked, her voice small. I hugged her tightly. "You're my sister," I said. "Always." In the months that followed, we rebuilt. Dad started talking more, sharing stories of Mom, of his choices, of his fears. Lila and I grew closer, bound by a truth that made us choose each other, just as Dad had chosen her. I learned that family isn't just blood, it's the messy, painful, beautiful choices we make to hold on to each other. I'd discovered the truth alone, but I didn't have to carry it that way. We were broken, but we were together, and that was enough.